we have one more guest tonight before we go to our panel. Ms. Brandon Basom. I'm glad to have you here tonight. You are probably one of my closest friends in Harrisburg, which is weird to me because, you know, you're you. So, no, I'm just kidding. He's one of the greatest people. But I'm saying that because I want to make sure everybody knows this is one of my closest friends, actually dog uncle.
Yeah.
Two
perfect angel babies.
Perfect. I sent you the videos. How can you say that?
If you weren't a tyrant, I mean, I'm just saying.
So we get to send our dogs to Brandon when we go away, and he's always like, give me the babies, all the time. So, how's Dune doing without his friend Huey?
He's not okay. We're just going to have to adopt Huey.
Huey's not okay. Huey sits by the door and whines.
Yeah, we're just going to have to exchange. You can have the old lady, and keep Langston, and I'll take Huey. Yeah.
I love my baby Winnie. So that's part of how we know each other. But I don't even remember how we met.
Probably talking shit, most likely.
Most likely.
Yeah, it seems,
most likely correct.
Yeah, being very loud.
Yep, being very loud about something.
Yeah.
But since then, I've gotten to know you as an activist, as a rabble rouser, which is probably my favorite part. Somebody said, who is this guy that you like be taking pictures with and stuff? And I was like, oh, that's my friend Brandon. He's a shit starter. And that's how I introduced you.
There you go. You know what? I like that better. I'm not an activist. I'm really not that active, but I do try to start shit if I can. So, yeah. Yep, correct.
So tell me about your work and how you see that fitting into a social justice kind of way of doing the world.
That's interesting. I don't know that I really think about it as my work. I work for the Commonwealth. Mm-hmm. Your previous guest, I work for the Office of Mental Health and Substance Abuse, and I do some work around disaster relief, and I find that to be really fulfilling, and it's actually kind of energizing. I mean,
like you got a grown-up job one day, and like, look.
I know, and like I get to talk to people who are like aware of trauma and things that I didn't know about. I got to learn about that. It actually keeps me centered. So in my spare time, I can go and anger city officials and scream at governments, and it's a lot of fun.
That sounds amazing.
And I get to recharge from like 9 to 5. So,
absolutely right.
Yeah.
So tell me more about the screaming at government officials and other things, because we've seen you quite active, particularly in the cities, talking about biking, pedestrian life, and moving about the city if you don't have a car. Tell us more about that.
I think for me, I'm not a spiritual person. I'm what you'd probably, what's a good way to put this? I'm a fairly radical anti-authoritarian, is what we'll call it. Mm-hmm. And I think that comes out in that when I've lived in Harrisburg my whole life. I love my city as a city and as a people. The government and me don't always get along. It seems that we invest a lot of our resources in things that benefit a small and very privileged minority, and we don't focus on things that help a vast majority of people. Mm-hmm. And one of the only things I think the government could conceivably be good for is public safety. And instead we offer, armed thugs. And it's not great. Yeah. There's no ability to move around the city safely. There's no way to do it unless you're in a vehicle, and even then, it's not incredibly safe. Instead of offering that, which, we were on the precipice of getting some improvements to, we got that totally canceled, and instead we keep increasing police budgets year after year, and then we have outbursts of crime, and people ask for more police funding.
Correct.
Even though it never seems to go where they'd like it to.
Or it never seems to remedy the issues that they're complaining about. Yeah.
Yep.
So tell me more about moving around the city safely. What is the issue, and why don't you think it's being addressed?
I think the issue is it is safe to move around parts of the city. I live in Uptown. I live not far from Italian Lake. And getting from Uptown to downtown is actually fairly easy and fairly safe. We have Front Street Park. You have 2nd Street, got great improvements. They did a road diet. They put 2 lanes where there used to be 3, slow traffic. The other streets really aren't so bad. The problem comes when you try to go to other parts of the city, the parts of the city that the city is never really acknowledged as parts of Harrisburg, and therein lies the problem. We have Cameron Street essentially separating well over half of the city from the part by the river, and then even throughout the neighborhood up on Allison Hill, you have things like Paxton Street, State Street, separating those out so that it's almost impossible to move safely from one end to the other. If you're in one of the neighborhoods that the more affluent neighborhoods don't want you to be able to move from and into So
that's right. So it gives you those big, huge throwaway barriers that prevent you from getting across safely.
Yeah, getting from Hall Manor, for example, to the park. I'm going to forget the name. Oh my God, Reservoir Park. Yeah, Reservoir Park is incredibly unsafe. Just as getting from P-Funk to Reservoir Park and getting from either to downtown is incredibly deadly, as can be attested by the fact that my friend was killed trying to get from her job up on Derry Street down to downtown.
Right.
So
tell us more about that. What happened with that?
That one is it's not personal that I won't talk about it, but it's a little personal. It all came in a big string. I'm going to go into some of the history because this will get into the State Street thing, and I did want to bring that up. But in 2018, State Street was found to be one of the deadliest streets in the nation. And our city was never very progressive on access to transportation, to transit, to getting around the city. But the city government and the state government actually got shamed for a little bit into actually taking some action. PennDOT flexed. The mayor and the engineer made a plan in order to take State Street, put it on a road diet, put one lane in each direction, put in protected bike lanes, and by narrowing the road, make it slower, safer, and create less space that you have to cross if you were a child or an elderly person or a disabled individual. Took years for that to come into place. Last March, a year ago this month, those changes were supposed to occur, and the mayor put a cease and desist, ordered the construction to stop. And, we came up politically. It hasn't gone back. They promised that they would put another plan in place. I saw the plan. It's awful. It strips out almost all the safety changes, but even that wasn't put into place. Mm-hmm. Nothing's been done. We have no city engineer. We have no progress on there.
We have no city engineer.
Yep.
Still.
And, without that, without a city engineer, we don't get streets paved. Without streets being paved, we don't fix sidewalks to make them ADA accessible. And this mayor has said about a year ago when they stopped the project on State Street that they were about the ADA, which is counterintuitive, but that's not true. We've not contracted a single mile of repaving or sidewalks to be fixed since this mayor came into office. So about a couple months after they stopped the progress on State Street, I was hit coming up Arsenal Road. I got hospitalized for just a day. And then I was for a few months I was laid up.
Yeah, sure.
But most importantly, in June, my friend was coming back from her job at a restaurant on Derry Street. She was coming down to her apartment, which is on on 2nd Street, and she was killed coming down Market Street. She went under an SUV. She made it to the hospital, and she died a day later, and it was pretty awful.
So you yourself have been hit. Your friend died. Someone from the encampment also.
Yep. Chantal Worley was killed was that, I believe, January? Or was it December?
January.
She was killed at the intersection of Cameron and Mark Street. We've been putting up ghost bikes at the locations of every cyclist who was killed and trying to make some noise about every pedestrian, but there's so many. Yeah.
And for a city the size of Harrisburg, it's overwhelming.
It's pretty awful. You expect this in Philly, and even in Philly, they've been making massive changes. Lancaster has an active transportation plan. In this case, we can't even get a repair to a road that was already planned, funded, and approved.
Wow.
This mayor stopped the project that she voted for with the rest of council when she was council president.
Yep, that's right. So in addition to that, you've also been having some dealings with the community law enforcement.
No, it's not the review board. Yeah, there you go.
There we go. Not review, advisory committee.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
A while ago, they spoke about creating a CLEAC. It seemed promising.
2020, when we all did the organizing.
Yep.
And we wrote amendments, and people were like, "Oh, they're feeding amendments to the government." It was all kinds of craziness. We got it through.
Imagine public input to the government.
Yeah. Oh,
terrible.
Yeah. No, right? So we did all that work, and what happened?
Well, I was initially skeptical of it, but then I looked at Philadelphia, and I saw that they have now a review board that came from having an advisory committee. So I was like, you know what? Baby steps are fine. Okay, we'll get into that. So they created, the positions they were going to. I guess the mayor has a couple, and then I think council has like 4.
Couple. The mayor has 2. Council has 5.
Yeah, 5. Okay. And apparently those are supposed to be separate. I applied for it because I figured why not? I have experience in human services through my job, so social work. and I live in Uptown in, it was a third ward? I don't
Yep.
know. A ward they didn't have someone
That's
for
right.
yet.
That's right.
So I applied for it. Councilman Ralph Rodriguez reached out to me, asked if I was still interested. I said yes. They put my name forward, and it was immediately rejected by our, is it council? Is that Grover?
The city solicitor.
Solicitor, I'm sorry. By the city solicitor after he spoke to, I'm thinking at least the Harrisburg Bureau of Police, and I don't know if the mayor's office, but apparently they do a scrub of your social media, and I was rejected because I've been openly critical of police in the past and recently. I have admittedly made statements saying that police are responsible for upholding classism and white supremacy. I did say that, I was critical of the police when they didn't take action on, like, my friend being killed, or for the Hurston Manor incident, or a few others. I've called police by name to be fired, which, yes, but...
We started with a petition?
Yes. But my argument is that if you have a diverse board who are going to offer advice and, advise the police, you do want someone who's not entirely, I don't want to swear. Yeah, not entirely up their ass. And so I'm thinking it'd be nice to have someone on the board who is maybe critical, who maybe thinks they could act better, especially considering you have 6 people, and, my vote isn't going to defund the police overnight. If only, but...
If only.
Yeah.
So, the city solicitor, how did you find out that you had been rejected?
The councilman informed me later that he was a little upset because I'd been rejected, and I think we were all under the impression that city council had the right to choose their own members. I was expecting that he'd bring my name up, and if I didn't get it, I'd get a vote before council. But apparently, the solicitor has some say in it before they bring it to council, and then council approves or...
So the solicitor has some say in those seats. Interesting.
It seems, which I'm confused because in all my reading, I did not believe that was the case.
I didn't see that anywhere in the bill myself, that we actually combed over for months.
No.
I didn't see. Did you see that?
I never saw that.
No. Nope.
So make sure we have that on record. So the solicitor was like, oh, not Brandon.
Yep.
Interesting.
I'm going to have to do a right to know to figure out if I can get any info behind that, because I hadn't bothered beforehand because I assumed it was just going to go before council, and I could either show up or just watch it on YouTube like usual.
Interesting. So we'll be keeping an eye on that because that sounds interesting to me. Something that we should probably keep an eye on because, again, not how the bill was written. Okay. So, a little infuriating.
Yeah, a little upsetting.
Yeah, a little bit. We worked really, and the only reason I'm saying that is because we worked really hard to be a community who voiced our opinion on those things in the middle of George Floyd and the protest for Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery and that whole entire year, only for them to hold it up for almost 3 years because it was passed in Bill 8 of 2020, which was November of 2020, and 2021, nothing, 2022, nothing. We're in 2023, and they're appointing people who are clearly pro-police and have no interest in critiquing the police at all, and are not going to act in the interest of people who have anything to say about how the police should do better, in my opinion.
And it reminds me a little bit of the State Street thing, where I think they're counting on a lack of either participation or knowledge on the behalf of anyone invested in this, because they take a thing, and in 2018 they promise us this, there were presentations, there was funding.
Yep.
In the case of this, it was there. They hold it off for years, and they're like, and now if we do away with it, no one remembers. And honestly, you've been doing a great job. Some others, unless you keep educating people, they don't remember. People weren't there 3 years ago who were working on it. People weren't there 5 years ago who were involved in it. So it's
and they even
real
stated that this board was to appease relations between this committee was to appease relations between the community and the police instead of holding the police accountable, which is again not what.
Yeah, we were not trying to give them after the community policing officers. I did not figure they needed any more PR.
Right.
But again, it would have been nice to get it into place, and then if in a few years we could maybe have some sort of accountability for Harrisburg police, because, let's be honest, our last mayor was terrified of the police, and our current one is infatuated with them. So it'd be nice to have someone who thought maybe they could do something wrong ever, and, try to change the way they do things.
Absolutely right.
Yeah.
So I want to get time for the panel. Let's put a pin in this.
Yep.
Will you stick around for the panel? We'll be right back
I'll
with
be here.
that.
Yeah.
All right, we'll be right back. Are you having a good night? We'll be right back after these messages.